we have the code section for each component, and then we will be pressing the start simulation once we place all the components. So if we see through all the components, we have the very basic electronic components like Arduino Uno, breadboard, battery, capacitor, and all of them. This is a very user-friendly tool. You just need to drag the component here, and it's all ready. So once you press this one, you just need to go to the code section, and you're all set to program this device. This Tinkercad also provides you one amazing way of programming, that is a block way of programming. This is pretty much easy to learn, and you also have the conventional way of programming. You can like either program your device in the standard programming way, or else you can just use the block codes here. So once we have programmed our device, we would be just pressing the start simulation button to see our simulation. As you can see, the current Arduino board has a blink LED code written in it, which basically says set the built-in pin to high, wait for 1 millisecond, and set it back to low, and then wait for 1 millisecond. So this guy will be in a continuous loop, and things will be going uh, repetitive in a repetitive manner. So if you see the built-in LED, this is the one we are talking about. So this will be glowing continuously as it's already written there. Now, say suppose we modify a few things. Say removed, say we just made it high and just left it. Then it will be just be continuously on because both the pins, both the states are continuously set to high, and the LED is never set to low. So this is one basic example. Now let us look at a simple example for our current situation. So right now we are looking at a simple traffic light, which we will be building using this Arduino. So we have three conditions to address in this. The first one is the red light one. So we set the condition as 30 seconds. So the red light has to glow for 30 seconds. Then the yellow light has to glow for 5 seconds. Then the green light has to glow for 20 seconds. And this should be in a loop. So we now have a intuition, like we now have a requirement to build such a system. Now, what would be the possible pseudocode for such a system? Say, so this would be the pseudocode that we will be talking about. So switch on the red light, wait for 30 seconds, then the yellow light, wait for 5 seconds, then the green light, and wait for 20 seconds, and make this in a loop. So we can implement this system directly in our Tinkercad. Just go to the Tinkercad. You already have the Arduino, and just search for LED. You have an LED already here. Just place the components one by one. So we have three LEDs. I'll just change the colors of them. This is red, this is yellow, and this is green. So in Arduino, we have two sets of pins. One is the analog pins. The second one are the digital pins. Out of the digital pins, we have six PWM modulated pins. So the PWM pins are basically used for controlling servo motors, the one which use the width of the pulse as a signal for actuation. So right now our LEDs are a digital kind of a device. So this will be accepting a high and a low value. So for that purpose, we'll be just using the digital pins for our current instance. So we have two parts. One is the anode and the second one is the cathode. For the LED glowing, we already have an example actually in the Tinkercad. So in the practical scenario, we need to connect a resistor to prevent overloading on the LED system. But in the current case, we can just skip the LED, like the resistor part. So if you see, we have two parts. The ground is connected to the cathode, and the voltage is connected to anode. So now there will be certain program written in this, which will basically send the signal to the 13th pin of the Arduino, and the 13th pin will be sending a high voltage to the anode pin. So we'll be using the same thing, but we'll be implementing our use case with this as well. So I'll just choose a few digital pins. It can be 13. The second one can be 8, and then 7. Okay. And then we have the cathode. So we have to short the cathodes to the ground. So okay. If you can see, this is even common in the practical case scenario. Like you can only put one of the pin into the ground. So for that purposes, we'll be using something called as a breadboard. So I'll just take one breadboard, place it in here. Let me just delete this connection. So I'll take the 5 volt and put it to this one, and then I'll take the ground and put it to the negative one. So now all these pins are pretty much shorted, so you can use all these pins for your purpose. And now just I'll be using the ground pin for connecting to the cathode, then this one to the cathode, and the third one to the cathode. Now I'll just show these pins again because we are only using one pin for each use case, and we have all the connections that we need. So now that we have completed the connections, we just need to do one thing, which is program these things. So we have the built-in LED code for this. I'll just delete this like the random code. So now, so as you can see, our pseudocode was basically setting the pin uh, 13. So set pin 13 to high, then uh, then we need to wait for 30 seconds. So wait 30 seconds. Then we'll set the 13 pin to low so that we prevent the red light and the yellow light glowing together. And then now we'll set the second one, which is the 8th pin for the yellow light to high. We'll wait another 5 seconds. Then we'll set the 8th pin to low. And now we will set the 7th pin, which is a green light, to high. Then we'll wait for 20 seconds. So this should be our code. And again, we have to make sure we set this pin to low so that the green light would go back to the its original state. And now again, this goes back to the red light. It will wait, and then yellow light. It will set to low and back. So let us just run this code. Now the red light will be on for 30 seconds, and then After 30 seconds, our yellow light will be on, then followed by the green light, and then again the system will be running in a loop. So we do have many customizations that we can make in this. If you see, uh, you can just change the color you can change the type of the connector that we use. You can have alligator or hookup pins, or you can just make the data pins as orange, which is the general convention that we follow, and uh, and the ground pins to the black. So now that we have built one simple system, you could make the things even more complicated. You can have your own custom logics in such a system. I mean, the Arduino is a pretty powerful device to use. There is a case that you can do a minute case of image processing in that minuscule device. So you can literally implement anything you want. I mean, you can have more complicated logics than the one we wrote. You might, once you get uh, once you get the overall theme, you might interface a camera module to understand the traffic flow, and then maybe make a customized controlled traffic flow system kind of a thing. So as you can see, this Tinkercad is a very useful tool for simulation, and the code that we wrote in the blocks is literally converted into the the actual code that we will be using in the Arduino IDE. So, but this is not the way that we actually implement the things in a real IoT scenario. We generally find the use case, and then we'll try to bring in the innovations that we can. So, and as you can see, the name IoT involves something called as internet. So we haven't even connected this thing to the internet. The Arduino Uno doesn't have the capability to connect the things to internet, but as Deepak's module suggests, we have something called as ESP32 or ESP8266, which are quite powerful and equivalent to this Arduino Uno, and they have the capability to connect to such IoT-based servers. And we can fiddle around with the data, and we could do wonderful things with such a minuscule devices. Now let us get a thing. Uh, Let us just look at this image, and we'll try to create a thing from this. So if you can see, we have a pretty empty road. It seems to be a night time in this, and we have the street lamps all over the place. So if you can see, there are like few people here, and there is literally no one standing here, and no one is using such electricity. So there is a chance and possibility of building a system in such scenarios. You see the street lamps, right? So the street lamps are glowing unnecessarily. I mean, nobody is literally using them at the moment. And so we could bring in a project, an innovation, which could possibly make these street lamps a pretty more dynamic kind of a way. So we can have something called as adaptive street lamps, which will analyze the human movements, and then based on the human movements, they will set the brightness tone to high or low. We need not literally switch off the street lamps because that would literally not serve the purpose, but we could at least save the electricity by decreasing the brightness. So let us look at such an intuition-based IoT system. So we could pitch in such a system by having three things at the moment. So although we have many possibilities that we can do, I mean, we could make the street name digital display with the street name, and we could literally bring in many things in a simple street lamp. But for the starting case scenario, we could just start with three of the things. The first thing can be the lamp should be dim when there are no people around it. The second one would be it should be going into maximum brightness so that it can assist the person passing by it. And the third one, the street lamp should be automatically turning on without anyone explicitly telling it to turn on. So we could initially start the thing with these three implementations, and we could call something like an adaptive street lamp. So let us build that system. So let me clear all these components. So we have the empty desk again, and we'll take the Arduino with the breadboard thing. So this basically has the 5-volt supply to the place, and it's connected to both the place, and the negative is shorted to the ground. So now what's our motivation is that we have to build a street lamp which can basically adapt to the things. So what can be our pseudocode for such a system? Now we'll be looking at the light. If the light is less than certain intensity, say it's an evening time, the the ambient light will be less than certain threshold. So our first trigger condition would be the light being less than certain threshold. And then we'll be looking at the people passing by. So we'll be using a light detection sensor followed by a motion sensor. So the motion sensor will be looking at the people who will be passing by. If we detect any motion, we will be setting the thing to the maximum brightness, or else we'll be setting the thing to the minimum brightness. As soon as the sun rises up, the light intensity will increase, and we'll be switching off a street lamp. So we have this would be the possible pseudocode to start with, and so we have an intuition that we'll be using something to detect a light called as light sensor, and the second one would be the motion detection sensor. So yes, search for light, ambient. So this is the ambient light sensor. So the basic logic that this sensor follows is that we have an emitter, we have a collector. So whenever there is sufficient light in this, the emitter is shorted to the collector. So whatever supply that we give here will be passed on to the collector. So what I will do is that I will connect the 5-volt pin to the emitter, and I'll be connecting the collector pin to say, since this will be acting something like a switch, it will be a digital pin because it can either give you 0 or it can either give you 1. The one equivalent of the one equivalent is basically the 5. So I'll just connect it to any of the digital pin, say let it be 4. And now we have one light sensor. So let us just program this one first. So I'll remove the initial code, and so we need to read the data from this digital pin. So read digital pin. So we need to, after reading the information, we need to store it somewhere. So we'll create a variable, say we'll call it light. Now we'll set the light to the information that we read from this digital pin. So our digital pin is 4 and 4. So just we'll initially try to print this one. So print to the serial monitor. So now what this program does is that it basically senses the light, and it will be giving out 1 or 0 depending on the light situation. So let us just run this system. So the simulation started. And for these kind of devices, we have the like for simulating the light situation, we have the bright and the dark kind of a thing. So if you see the serial monitor, it's right now printing zeros since it's initially set to the dark condition. So we will make this the bright condition. It goes to 1 and we'll keep it in the middle. So basically it is set to a certain threshold. So anything above that threshold will be considered as a 1. So the literal darkness is what it considers as darkness. So now we are able to take our input uh, about the ambient from the ambient light. So the next condition would be checking. So we need to check if the light is there or not. So we need to print something. We need to do something only if it goes dark. If it's if the ambient we have if we have sufficient ambient light, then we need not do anything. We just need to keep the lamp at low. So what we can do is that we will initially put 2 light bulbs. So this can be 1 light bulb, and for the second case, we'll put 3 light bulbs. So we have 2 terminals. Um, so what we can do is that we will short all the grounds of these terminals. And we will short all the terminals, all the second terminals of the light bulb. We'll take this connection and short this to one of the digital pin, because lights are again the digital. So we have one light bulb, one set of the light bulbs ready, and we put that to the 8th pin. We'll put this one to the second 7th pin. And we will short the ground to the second. Alright, so we set the 7th pin and the 8th pin as a terminals for turning on the lights. And now we are also able to take the ambient light. So what we can do is that we have a pseudocode already, so which is basically check if the ambient light is greater than certain threshold. So it will be something like a if else condition. So if the ambient light is less than 1, we mean to say if the ambient light is less than certain threshold, we mean if it's dark, then set the pin. So our single pin is the 7th one, so set the pin to 7, and also set the 8th pin. Yes. If it's early in the morning, or if the light is above threshold, then set both of them to low. So this should be low, this should be low. So we have a logic. It basically reads the ambient light, and depending on the ambient light, it switches on the bulbs. So right now we are in the dark condition state. So if I make this up, so these light bulbs go dark. So, and again, if the sun sets down, we have the lights again. But we have to make the system more adaptive. Like what we planned is that we'll be detecting the person's movement, and depending on the person movement, we will be giving him minimum brightness or the maximum brightness. So for such a case of scenario, we have something called as the motion detection module or PIR. So the PIR sensor has a certain range of threshold. What it detects is the motion, not the presence of a body. If you see the difference between an IR module and a PIR module, the PIR is basically looking for the changes in the position of an object. The IR basically looks for an object. So that's a brief difference about these two things. So this PIR module has three pins. The first one is the signal, which basically gives out one if it detects any object, and zero if it doesn't detect any object. So even the PIR module is a digital sensor in that case. So we'll just rotate this component. Right. Now let us just connect the signal to one more digital pin. Say we already used up 7, 8, so we can go with 13 again. And for this PIR module, we have to give the power as well. So the second one is ground. Right. So we connected this to the 13th pin. Let's just see what the PIR gives. So read from the digital pin. Again, we need another variable for this one. So we'll set this as motion. So motion to input, read the digital pin 13, and we'll just print this motion. So our LEDs will be normally functioning depending on the ambient light, and we are trying to analyze the user's motion around this lamp. So we'll start the simulation. Here I am missing terminating now. So I've accidentally entered a quotation, which is not allowed in the C programming. So allowing said, so this structure basically follows the C and the C++ format. So you have the object-oriented features of the C++. You have the structural programming of the C. So it's a combination kind of a thing, and we generally call this programming as the embedded C. So we have the light bulbs on again. So let us make it in the morning. Right now we'll just, so the PIR has this range. It can basically detect an object, and once it detects an object, it will be printing out to the serial monitor. So let us see that serial monitor. Right now there is no movement, and once we move an object, it goes to high. Once the object passes the lamp, it goes back to zero. So we just need to incorporate this with our current logic. So if the light is less than zero, then we have to see the user's motion. So it will again be an if else statement here. Now Now, if the motion is less than 1, so the light, it's dark and the person got detected. So then we have to basically set all the lights to maximum brightness. If the motion is not detected, then we just have to set, then we can turn these three bulbs off and we can just turn on this single bulb. So this one is connected to the 7th pin. So the 7th one should be high and the 8th one should be low. We can remove this one and we have to leave this condition. Oh, did we do something? Oh, just one more. Right. So if the light is less than 0, if the light is less than 1, then we are in the dark condition, else both the lamps should be off. Now if the lamp is turning on, we'll detect the motion. So if there is a motion, that means if we have a motion, then basically it's 1. So it shouldn't be this. We have a motion, we basically 1, else we'll just set the. So right now it's dark and there is no motion. So one person passes by and we have all the brightness. And again he goes away. We only have the minimum brightness. So this is a very basic example and very short and speed example of how we can just pitch in an innovation in a simple everyday images. So um, if you guys have any doubt about these kind of implementations, and we can move to that section.
Suhas, I just had a small question.
Yeah,
Those templates pop up as you choose the board and the programming templates from where
yeah,
you pull the generated codes. They are ready made, so one pretty
yeah,
much
yeah.
doesn't have to
Yes,
write code on their own. Not this
right.
the as you go closer to the board and try to add a functionality for code, you have those. Uh,
You mean in this one?
yeah. So this is like helps you a lot in programming, right? The code on the extreme right is auto
Okay, you mean this one?
yeah
Yeah, yeah. This is actually the auto-generated part. I mean,
from the templates
from
that you
the
see.
block codes. Yes.
Right. Okay.
So in the actual case scenario, like in the if we really want to implement such a system in real life, we have to go with this kind of program. I mean, we don't
Right.
have a support for the block codes in the Arduino system. So this is the actual program, and that's actually the wonderful feature of this Tinkercad. So
Hmm.
this provides you the hassle of this skips you the hassle of writing such tremendous codes. I mean, you have to literally set each pin, the type of the pin, and then you have to write it. And here I'm just sticking the blocks together and getting the things done.
Hmm.
So that is one wonderful thing we have. So if you guys have any more doubts, then we can surely like make a new thing or it is the things in this manner.
Yeah, sorry, please go ahead. You can unmute and ask or write your questions in the chat box.
So do we have only Arduino Uno available in this?
Yeah,
Uh,
we only have the Arduino
mm,
in this. That's the only thing we have.
Okay, then we don't have any other parts like transistors and all to.
Yeah, we do have the transistors. I mean, they gave the basic electronics like diodes, transistors, and a few other sensors as well. We have the ultrasonic and all, but the controller is only one. They only gave the Arduino Uno, so that's the thing limiting here actually.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any questions or doubts, or if you'd like Mr. Suhas to explain some more parts, it's a good opportunity for you all to learn. Did any of you try it out yourself while this was
Yeah,
being
you guys can just try this thing. Maybe we can just wait. And trying would definitely give you some doubts. So,
Yeah, what does the micro kit do?
yeah, the microbit actually is an other kind of controller. I mean, they pitched in this. Uh, this is something like a development board, and this is something like an IC. They both function the same way, even program the same way, but just this is more minuscule and minuscule than the Arduino. This is a generic module. I mean, the Arduino is a generic module. This is the system specific module. Like if you see the examples as well, you have very specific examples for this microbit.
Payaswini also typing in the chat box that she is also trying.
Yeah, sure, sure. Just I'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, could you please explain ambient sensor once again?
Yeah. So I think you guys should be familiar with a basic transistor. The transistor has three parts, like the emitter, base, and the collector. So in a general BJT transistor, when you give a certain threshold voltage to the base, it basically, depending on the input voltage, it allows the emitter electrons to move to the collector part. So this component also follows the same strategy, but here we are not giving any input in the base. Rather than that, it's taking the ambient light and converting that as a base voltage, and depending on that voltage, it is allowing the emitter voltage to pass through the collector. It's a simple BJT with the base as a light input.
Thank you, sir.
So the PIR module is actually one of the wonderful modules that I've like literally came across, because you could literally put this in very innovations. I mean, we have a system in our lab, like all the lights would turn on based on this PIR module, and even in the toilets and other places, like people we don't have switches. The PIR module does all the job. You just walk in and things happen automatically. So that's really cool to see and feel when you are in such places.
You mean it's your system that you have developed that is working in your lab?
Yeah, we have a system with PIR module.
Oh,
So
lovely.
we are
Okay.
actually we made a system like we have PIR module. So this guy basically observes the occupancy of the people. Say suppose if anyone walks in, depending on the room temperature, the ACs get activated. So it turns on the ACs, sets the ACs to certain temperature, and then they turn off automatically. So that's how our system actually works in that. I mean, that's really cool to see actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I also have this other question. So as long as you stick to this Arduino Uno, that code that got auto-generated can directly be used, right? Literally copy pasted and used.
Uh, yeah, actually. I
Okay.
mean, the code that you get here can be literally placed in, and even the components can be placed. I mean, the definitely not the light bulbs,
Yeah, yeah.
because that wouldn't be possible. I mean, we are correcting directly to the digital pins, but we have something called as an actuator module. We have actuating devices, so which will take the Arduino's simple 5 volt, 20 milliamp power and convert that into the 220-volt kind of a thing.
Okay.
So we'll be having an actuating module in between. But the overall, like the inputs and outputs are the thing that you see here.
Hmm. Any other questions or points of discussion from any participant?
Sir, how would you implement this practically, sir? For example, you are said you have implemented this in your lab.
Yeah, yeah.
How many sensors you have used and how you interfaced with the Arduino board?
Right. So, no, actually, I mean, we didn't use the Arduino in exact. Okay, I'll tell you the exact system that we used. So we used 5 PIR modules. We literally modified the circuitry and we made them to run on batteries for say 30 days. So that module basically works on battery and they are standalone. So we place them at 5 different spots near the entrance. And if you see in this simulation as well, there is some view angle. So this PIR only works for a certain angle. And our PIR modules had an viewing angle of 45 degrees. So we placed in such a way that anyone, it observes the person who comes into the room. So then that is one part of the section. And this PIR module data these PIR modules have an internal Bluetooth module. So which sends the data to a Raspberry Pi. We have a Raspberry Pi system there, and that basically connects to these PIR systems. So once the Raspberry Pi gets the data, we are sending the data to our local server. We have an IoT server called 1M2M. So this 1M2M gets all the data, and from the 1M2M, we have another module which are called as smart room air quality modules. So the smart room air quality has the carbon dioxide sensors and the temperature sensors and what more? I think we have 2 more sensors. I don't remember them, but we have 4 sensors in the air quality module. And this guy basically looks for the temperature changes and it observes the ambient temperature. Now, if we got the presence from the PIR module in the server, and if we have a certain, say, above the temperature threshold, then we are sending the data through something called as a BACnet protocol. So we have the Daikin air conditioning system. They provide you with something called as a BACnet system. The BACnet systems can be like literally they can be communicated similar to what we are seeing here, and that's how the whole thing is running. Like once we have both the conditions, like the temperature being above the threshold and the presence being detected, then we are actuating the BACnet, and then the ACs are getting turned off. So that's the whole actual implementation of the system that we have.
If you have it somewhere in IIIT Hyderabad or your lab's website, maybe you could refer them to the design. Or if you have
No,
made
I
some
mean,
YouTube video or something, any kind of.
no, we didn't make any YouTube video for this one. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, you can't show a AC getting turned on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem that we have. But that's how the whole system is actually working. I mean, the thing in IoT is that once you start a system, you will be having more ideas than you started, than the one you started with. So
Yeah.
that's the thing I found out. in my life.
So Brinda is probably, Brinda, if you're looking for some project ideas or something like that, like,
Yes, ma'am. We have done in our final year project power theft identification.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So for that, in practical implementation, there will be we require a lot of sensors, and there will be difficulty in practical implementation. So that's why I asked how it is be possible.
Yeah, that is there. Implementing that practically, um, it will be a lengthy task for sure.
Hmm.
It will be a lengthy, but definitely a satisfying job to do. That is one thing I can guarantee.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, points for discussion? We do have about 5 minutes more.
I mean, I have one thing to add. If any of you guys got saturated with like the Arduino IDE, I would suggest you guys to go with Eclipse. I mean, this is what I use personally. The Eclipse is a literally very wonderful tool to program the microcontrollers. And I mean, you can use Arduino. It is all cool if you have a minuscule devices. But once you step into the actual field, you will have literally many devices to manage and many programming files to handle. So I would suggest um getting familiar with Arduino first and then moving on to Eclipse as soon as possible. The Eclipse is, it follows the same convention, but you have wonderful debugging tools and wonderful code completion tools there, unlike Arduino.
Have you ever tried to use AWS IoT or anything like that?
No, I'm actually working on it. I mean, we have our own server. We created our own server.
Okay.
You know, AWS is something that is not quite feasible financially or whatever it can be. But
Okay, because
yeah,
many applications after 12 months you have to pay.
yeah, you have to pay. I mean, you are actually limited by what do you call the number of requests. They put a limit on them.
Hmm.
So having your own server is better actually.
Hmm.
We use this one actually. I'll just show you. So we use this OM2M server. It is literally an open source thing, and it is one such wonderful thing that we use. It is literally very, I mean, it is not easy to do, but once you get the thing up, it's a literally wonderful thing to have.
You can
We use
develop
this.
full-fledged IoT applications.
Yeah, the OM2M has a few inbuilt actuation systems. It's a IoT server. It has the things that are relevant for it.
And what about it is a free tier. There are
This is open source. This is completely
this is
open source.
open source. Okay.
You can
Okay.
just download this and just even run it quickly in your system. This is around 50 MB or something.
Oh, okay. This is another thing that you could try. We gave them a demo of AWS IoT, but yeah, this might be another one. I didn't know about this OM2M. We should try it out.
Yeah, OM2M is literally wonderful.
Mhm.
We have this. We have this on it. It's a Java-based server,
Mhm.
but you need not know Java for using it.
Hmm.
It's a user. It's a user friendly once it's up. Yeah. Any more questions, guys? Implementation or anything in general?
Sir, I had a question. What kind of research work goes on in your lab with respect to IoT?
Research work. Yeah. So Firstly, there are three kinds of things. So there are few people who work on hardware itself. They try to bring out the innovations possible in the hardware itself. Like we had a system where we had to monitor the water flow data and water quality data. So there are few people who are literally trying to miniaturize the IoT devices, making them low power. That is one segment of the people, like purely on the hardware kind of a thing. The second category would be working on the server side. We literally have a very low frequency of 15 seconds for data points. I mean, we have 15 seconds, 1 minute, different kinds of frequencies. So there are people who are trying to manage such a tremendous data. And the third category of the people are the one who actually use the data. Few people are actually, trying to like, few people wrote papers in international journals about the innovations that they got from the data. Like they used ML, they brought DL even in the data, and they literally, you know, they compared the data with a low cost devices, and they proved that their devices are more worth it. So these are the kind of innovations you find in our lab.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? We have 2-3 minutes more. It's a good opportunity to know about.
Can you comment on using APIs in implementing IoTs, such as a geolocation API and using APIs for applications?
Okay, API in general, I mean, that's a broad question. Uh, what do you want to do exactly with APIs?
So instead of using a hardware module, we can use APIs for getting data with some other sources available around the IoT system. So how much it is effective compared to the hardware module? Since I'm working on location project, I have studied about the geolocation API and also a GPS tracker. Using a GPS model will cost a lot. Instead, if we switch on to a geolocation API, we can get the location using the Wi-Fi routers around us.
Right. So we have one thing to consider, which is accuracy. So we are talking about how much accurate and how much fast you want to get the data. I mean, if you're trying to get, depending on the other sources, you might end up in minutes or something. Your processing time might increase, and that would be, depending on the mission or the IoT project that you're on, that would be a critical thing to have. So, I mean, you can use the open source APIs for the geolocation example, but the accuracy is the one that matters there. So, what is the amount of accuracy that depends that you demand is what decides that fact. Using the APIs or using the already existing the existing hardware. So the accuracy and speed are the factors that we have.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And for the sending to a server, you actually use the API calls. I mean, you use the post, you use the put. So we generally use those things. I think you guys must be knowing the ThingSpeak server, which is the MathWorks IoT server, which is a free tier thing. So that actually uses this post and get request to store and get the data.
So we used Fritzing open source software in our project that can provide nano, mega, etc. Also, beside Arduino, a great session by Sir, I must say. My doubts are cleared now. Okay, so it was more a comment. Yeah, thanks. Krishna. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
I think he's happy about this session.
Any more doubts?
Yeah, any more doubts, points of discussion? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Nanda.
Ma'am, Nagalakshmi here. Can we means I want to ask sir that is it possible to know the source code of each and every component? Means is it available?
Yeah, you can literally get the source code for every component. I mean, they're already available. You'll either get them in the data sheets, or you can just search for the vendor's data sheet.
Okay.
I mean, the codes are pretty much available. They're already there. You just need to bring them and combine them into the codes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.